Hello, I'm Paul Peterson. Most cultures around the world hold the advice of their elders in high regard, and most of us have sought out the wise counsel of a senior at some time or another. As the internet has become the primary source of information for so many people, it didn't take a savvy group of seniors long to come up with the idea of sharing their wealth of experience and advice with others in the form of an online advice service. In today's show, we're going to be meeting members of the Elder Wisdom Circle and find out how they're reaching out to people of all ages around the world and giving them advice on broad-ranging subjects. Please stay tuned for Aging in LA. The Elder Wisdom Circle provides free and confidential advice to online advice seekers around the world. The advice seekers are connected to a network of seniors who are affectionately known as cyber grandparents and who share their wisdom, knowledge, and insight with them via email. Joining us today are Molly Peer and Candy Montero, who are just two of the more than 600 elders volunteering with Elder Wisdom Circle. Thank you both so much for joining me today. This is a fascinating a volunteer opportunity. Molly, let me start with you. How did you become a member of the Elder Wisdom Circle?
Some years ago, when I was just being introduced to internet services, I had a web TV, and I really can't remember the details, but I suddenly saw this flash on my screen and logged on to Elder Wisdom Circle, and it fascinated me.
Really?
I thought that I've lived a long life with many, many different experiences, and I feel that I can help people with my knowledge, with my experience, and with the things that I've learned. In turn, I believe that I can be helped by their questions, for it gives me a feeling of self-esteem to be able to advise somebody to do something that will make a change in his or her life.
And Candy, same kind of surprise one day?
I was reading Time magazine, and I just retired. And I'm a goer, a doer. I've got to be doing something. And I thought, now this is perfect. I can do this right at home, stay with my doggies, and give people advice. I love to tell people what to do. So.
Well, was that your business experience? I mean, you retired from a professional life.
Yeah.
It was kind of like herding cats, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was a literary agent and dealt with a lot of producers and writers.
Yeah.
And you're always holding hands and saying, it's going to be okay.
Exactly. Well, of course, with my foundation work with young performers, it can be so exasperating. How do you keep your wits about you? Because the people can do the darndest, dumbest things.
I know. Well, in that business, I was in that business for about 20 years. And somehow I have this personality where I kind of calm down when everybody's going nuts, because I used to be a reporter. So I was used to taking notes and talking to people and having a whole lot of commotion around me.
Mm-hmm.
So
an island of sanity.
Yes, exactly. I tried to be.
Well, Molly, how much time do you share of yourself? Do you have a schedule?
Not really, but I do try to get on to the website at least once a day. Sometimes there are days when I'm so busy I don't get on at all.
Yeah.
But when I have some free time and there's nothing interesting to watch on television, I go to the computer and turn on the website and read the letters. And then when I feel I'm particularly qualified to answer a problem, I do. I'm very much into helping and advising gay people.
Mm-hmm.
I have been involved in acting for gays for many, many years, since the youngest of my 3 sons was gay. And this was back in the 80s when it was almost a taboo subject, and my son was afraid to come out to me. But when he finally did, I indicated to him that I loved him, he was my son, and whatever made him happy would make me happy. Subsequently, I joined a wonderful group called PFLAG and learned everything I possibly could. I read every piece of literature, studied science issues, and recognized that being gay isn't chosen. I have walked in gay pride parades, and I have helpfully and hopefully made some of the most wonderful friends of wonderful people who are kind, compassionate, caring, and who give so much of themselves to our society.
Well, in those days, there was a profound loss within the gay community, and it was often painful, but you had some experience with loss. You lost your husband back in 1975, suddenly.
Yes. Well, my husband died without warning of a massive heart attack at age 56. And when I finally got over the initial shock and despair, I realized that I had to do something in this world that would continue to make him proud of me. When my youngest son was studying, he was a graduate of Albert Einstein Medical School in New York. And that's when AIDS raised its ugly head. And rather than go into the practice of treating children, he wanted to be a pediatrician. He was the first doctor in New York to treat AIDS. So very soon, he had developed a wonderful reputation. He had worked with Dr. Matilda Krim at AMFAR, that's the American Foundation for AIDS Research. And in 1989, he himself died of the disease at age 37. Nobody knows what the devastation occurs to a parent at losing a child unless he's experienced it himself. However, I was not going to allow that terrible, terrible thing that happened to me affect my life. And so I became even more involved and have been a founder and part of a volunteer group called Project Chicken Soup.
Perfect.
2 Sundays a month.
Kosher.
Right?
We cook kosher meals and deliver them to people with HIV and AIDS. This is all volunteer work. The reason we cook kosher food is because the only kitchen that has the equipment and the space for the volunteers is the Hirsch Kosher Kitchen on Fairfax Avenue. And so we rent that kitchen from the Jewish Federation, or rather the Jewish Family Service.
Right.
And we pay for all the necessary help, the dishwasher, the specially ordained person who makes sure that the food we use is kosher. And yet, less than 1/3 of our clients are Jewish, because in our creed, in our Torah, it says, you do not turn away the stranger, and anybody who asks for help is given that help. We don't require any kind of information other than there's a medical statement that the person has HIV or AIDS, and they have to sign a pledge that they will be at home when the food is delivered, because we may not leave food on the doorstep, and that they will be decently polite to the deliverers and to everybody else. And our clients love it because they don't get food like that anywhere else in the city.
Of course, and Los Angeles is richer for that kind of volunteerism, and it's nice to have an unsinkable Molly of our own. That's great. And obviously your kindness and humanity comes straight through, and you have a wide variety of subjects that are broached to you in confidence. Can you tell me a little bit, Candy, about the things that interest you or that you find maybe alarming, or there are too many of them? What kind of things do you involve yourself with?
Well, I like to write to kids who are around 13, 14, 15,
Really?
who are going through that change that is so difficult for teenagers. And we live in a society of mixed messages. Abstinence, condoms, you know, what do you do?
Right. And when your hormones are raging.
And they're raging.
Oh, boy.
They're raging. And these kids, I'm kind of amazed that they don't have more education about safe sex. I had one girl write me saying, well, I was on top, so I couldn't have gotten pregnant.
Oh, gosh.
You know, and I try to answer as many as I can because it's the girls that I get the most from because they're being pressured. And I try to give advice in a gentle way, but tell them, wait, just wait. You're too young.
Well, one of the grand things of getting older is that very few things can shock us anymore.
That's true.
And I'm really not surprised that youngsters who are familiar and live with the Internet could find wonderful people to share with them the value of your experience. So after the wacky world of music and artists and writers, do you find common threads, though? If you focus on the 13 and 14-year-olds, there are many times suicide issues.
Oh, yeah, we get those.
At particularly that age is a very vulnerable age for a young girl.
It is. Well, I got to actually, this guy was considering committing suicide, and I think I could tell by the letter he was probably about 16 or 17. And he went through this whole litany of what was wrong with his life. And I realized that he was very literate and wrote a good letter. And I just had this sense he was feeling sorry for himself.
Yes.
So I kind of said, you know, I'm going to shake you. I'm never going to be your grandmother.
The get over it.
And say, get over it. And he wrote me back. Yeah.
It'll be helpful if we kind of illustrate how the Elder Wisdom Circle imparts advice to younger people. So Aging in LA decided to do a home visit. Now let's watch. Who says the past can't equip us for the future? Enter Molly Peer, who was a military wife from 1940 through 46 and then became the mother of 3, along with Candy Montero, who during the mid-70s worked as a reporter for Billboard Radio. One might ask, what do these two women have in common? As active seniors, they contribute their personal life experiences to the Elder Wisdom Circle, an online advice column for young adults. Aging in LA stopped by the campus of USC to get student questions about life's invariable problems.
Hi, my name is Jerry. My question is, my father's 65 years old, and I would like to know who could I establish a good relationship with him because I'm mostly into the young stuff and he's into the older stuff, so I would like to know how can I actually establish a good relationship with my father.
Jerry, I'm so pleased that you sent a note to us asking that question. I'm of the same generation as your dad, and I know that it's very difficult to accept our younger children the way life is today. But you have to get in touch with your father. Call him on the phone, send him a letter, do any way you possibly can to make contact with him with no anger, with no feeling of regret. Let him understand that you're living the life you need to live in today's society. Tell him how successful you are if you've got a good job and are working at it. If you're married, tell him that you have a wonderful wife and that you're very happy. If you have children, tell him that you want him to know his grandchildren, that they're lovely, lovely children and they need to have him in their life. Try to make him understand that things are different now and you can't live up to his expectations if they're not realistic.
What I want to ask an elder is, when you look back at your life, is there anything that you think that you could have done better? Because I'm not sure if I'm not making the right turn in my life at the moment. Is there anything that you wish that you missed out on, that you wish you'd done better? Education, job, you let go of something, let go of an important person that could have changed your life?
Well, Aldel, that is a question that I've asked many, many times, and if I had $10 for each one due to inflation, I would be a rich woman. But unfortunately, the only thing about mistakes, the good things about mistakes, is that you learn from them and you try not to repeat them. But mistakes are part of life, and that's, as I said, that's how you learn. And the important thing is to remember that along with the mistakes, you made some good decisions. And think about those, dwell on those. And As my mom always said, be prepared for the luck that comes. You can avoid a lot of mistakes if you're prepared in education and relationships, good friends, keeping close to your family, being at work 10 minutes early and leave 10 minutes late. And that way, when success does come, and it will in the form of some form of luck, you will be prepared and you won't make as many mistakes. But you're going to make mistakes and learn by it. That's the important thing, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, we've all made that.
Yes. No one goes through this life unscathed.
That's true.
Boy, is it ever true. Everybody gets lemons. You know, it's so amazing. Life, as the old poet said, is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And do you think the media is playing a role in sort of creating unrealistic expectations for our young people, Molly?
Yes, I do. There's a tremendous emphasis these days on sexual activity.
Yes.
And people have lost sight of the fact that sex is not a little game you play for a momentary pleasure. Sex should be an expression of true love between two people, an addendum to all of the other variants that go into loving another person. The caring, the wanting to please, all of that is very important. And sex is important too, but it should have meaning, more or less the way it did when I was growing up. And
I love the advice, but it's time for a short break. When we return, we'll talk more with Molly Peer and Candy Montero, members of the Elder Wisdom Circle. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In the case of a disaster, you need to be able to communicate with emergency personnel and your support network, as well as to stay current with the latest information. For additional information, please contact the Department on Disability or the Emergency Management Department by calling the numbers on the screen or by dialing 311.
Before approaching an intersection, so that's why two wrong turns don't make a right turn. Now let's learn about tailgating.
Hey, that's how I got my ticket.
You got a ticket for tailgating? That's not good. That can be really annoying.
Doesn't get you there any faster.
It leaves you no distance to brake.
Which makes it easier to get into a crash.
And it also may increase your insurance premium. And I hate tailgaters. Tailgating causes crashes. Back off. Watch the road.
Welcome back to Aging in L.A. Our topic today, the Elder Wisdom Circle. And our guests are two members of that organization, Molly Peer and Candy Montero. Again, thank you both for joining us. Now, Candy, you've got this life, in for a penny, in for a pound, because the Elder Wisdom Circle isn't your only volunteer activity. Tell us a little bit about the other part of your life.
Well, about 6 years ago, one of my clients actually was a cat counselor. And I said, what's a cat counselor?
All right.
She said, well, I volunteer at Pet Orphans. So I went down and went through the orientation. And it's a wonderful organization. It's been in business actually just about 3 days ago, 36 years.
Wow.
And they've adopted out about 30,000 dogs to permanent homes. And I volunteer at the front desk when the prospective parents come. I have them fill out the forms, and we talk, and they go through the counseling and go through the kennel. And I love it. It's so wonderful to see these little doggies go home, because they get a bath before they go home. And their little tails are going, we're going home.
Yeah. A rescue dog is always grateful. Always
very
grateful.
It's amazing. I have 2 rescues myself, and they have separation anxiety when you first take them home, and they will not leave your side. If you leave the room, they cry.
Yes.
It takes them about 3 months till they know they're home.
Yeah. Or longer.
Yeah.
My little scamper, he's still not sure I'm ever coming back.
But when you come home, it's like you've been to Cambodia back, right?
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Exactly. Or even if you go for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, it's the same routine. Okay, I'll get you your snack. Hang on.
I'm here.
But this part of your heart, which you're willing to share with other people, is a big component and the reward in volunteering,
yeah.
because you get good stuff happening. Now, Molly, when you, at the end of the day, when you put your head down on the pillow, do you kind of feel like I'm everybody's grandma, their Jewish grandma?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, at Project Chicken Soup, I am known as the resident Jewish grandmother. And when I first started, I was the resident Jewish mother, but I've graduated to resident Jewish grandmother. But doing this work doesn't have the great emphasis for others as it has for me. I feel it has kept me well, it has kept me alive, it has kept me in good health, and besides that, for me, there's a very strong spiritual connection with my son. While he was very, very talented as a doctor, I don't have that kind of talent, but I am a cook. And I
Just
can
as
cook.
important.
Well, of course it is. You know, you get that good advice from your Jewish grandmother, and oh, by the way, you get the pinch on the cheek and chicken soup. Of course. You know, my favorite Jewish grandmother story concerns a study that they did at Yale New Haven, where they took 100 people who had been diagnosed with emotional issues, and they split them up into 3 groups. One group went to psychiatrists, another group went to psychologists, and the third group went to Jewish grandmothers recruited from the local temple. Now, who do you suppose came up with the best results? Of course, the Jewish grandmothers, because they had that, their wisdom was based on experience and love and, oh yeah, a good bowl of soup. So, good stuff. But Candy, it has to be emotionally wrenching when an issue comes before you that, boy, the person has obviously admitted they've made a mistake, but what if they're pregnant?
Yeah.
And 14? How do you deal with that?
Well, my heart sinks the first time. I think,
Yeah.
oh, no. But then, you know, these kids really are less informed than you think. And the first thing I type out to them, are you sure? You should go to a doctor and make sure that this is the case. And because these home pregnancy tests, I think, are pretty good, but they're not infallible. But the most important thing is you've got to tell your parents. And they usually haven't told their parents because they didn't want to disappoint them, they didn't want to get them upset. But your parents are absolutely your best friends. Boyfriends come and go, girlfriends come and go, but parents and grandparents are there in your life forever. They care about you more than anybody else.
Yes, and it's so true. There's a repetitive nature to the troubles that human beings get into, and Shakespeare said it, there's only 7 stories. Mm-hmm. And do you have to guard, Molly, do you guard against saying, oh, I've heard this one before?
No, never.
See, that's
I
important.
treat each individual letter as an individual, unique problem. Mm-hmm. I don't refer to others. I just concentrate on the writer. And often I try to be consoling, but I also try to teach a lesson. And while you can't take back what has already happened, you can learn for future behavior.
Right, that's true. And of course, I'm such an optimist. I'm always telling people, in that room full of manure, there's a pony. You know, you're going to have. But sometimes you have to search so hard for it. Do you compare notes with the other volunteers, Candy?
No, not really.
So you're out there on your own.
Yeah. Yes. But unlike Molly, what I'll do with a lot of those letters, because there really are only 7 different problems,
yeah.
But as Molly says, each one is individual. But many times I'll say, you're not alone. I get so many letters on this. There's so many people have the same problem, so don't feel like it's only happening to you.
Right. And, you know, before I go any further, I want to mention the website so that people, there may be folks out there that want to make contact. There's the website up on the screen, okay? You see it? elderwisdomcircle.org. You can, is the process fairly straightforward?
Oh, yes,
to
it's
get
just
in
like any
contact?
website.
Really?
Just go, yeah.
Okay, a couple of clicks and you
You're
write
there.
down your problem?
Yeah.
Wow,
It's easy.
It's important, too, because we've lost something in our culture when entire families used to not only be together under a roof, but the community was many times your aunts and uncles and cousins, and that's not there anymore. How was your relationship with your grandparents? Did you know your grandparents?
Yes, very much so. Unfortunately, they died within 3 weeks of each other.
Oh.
But I was raised in Brooklyn, New York. My grandparents lived on the Lower East Side. We spent every weekend, every Sabbath, and every major holiday with my grandparents.
Great.
I remember sitting in my grandmother's lap. I remember her giving me ice cream because they lived in a tenement over the pharmacy which my uncle owned.
And there was an ice cream parlor there?
And yes, and I learned to jerk sodas when I was no more than 8 years old.
Well, you know, time is a little short, and I'm gonna drop a dime on you, Molly, because if you're out there thinking, "Oh, I'm too old for all of this," Molly is 88 years young, and I'm so proud to know you, and bless you both for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it looks like our time is up for today's program. Our thanks to our guests on Aging in L.A., members of the Elder Wisdom Circle, Molly Peer and Candy Montero. And now, it's time for today's Senior Stat Shot. Since today's program was all about sharing advice, we have some tips for seniors when it comes to emergency preparedness. You should prepare long before a sudden emergency and learn how to protect yourself and cope with disaster by planning ahead. Here's a disaster checklist. Assemble a disaster supplies kit, including medical and general supplies. Arrange for someone to check up on you. Plan and practice the best escape routes from your home. Find the safe places in your home for each type of emergency. Have a plan to signal the need for help. Post emergency numbers near your phone. If you have home health care, plan ahead with your agency for emergency procedures. And teach those who may need to assist you in an emergency how to operate necessary equipment. Be sure they will be able to reach you, and that's today's Senior Stat Shot. The Los Angeles Department of Aging produces this program with CityView, Channel 35, so that seniors living in Los Angeles and surrounding communities are well informed on the many issues that face them in everyday life. And also to let you know of the many services that the Department of Aging offers our senior citizens, and we'd like to hear from you with comments on the program, what you like, what you think can be improved, and ideas for future programs. So please give us a call. The number's there on your screen, area code 213-252-4088. That's 213-252-4088. Call us with your comments and ideas. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm Paul Peterson for the Los Angeles Department of Aging, the people here at CityView Channel 35, and all of our guests on Aging in L.A. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Molly, thank you.